Thank you for standing by and welcome to the Painchek investor webinar and Q&A following the company's quarterly update announced on Friday. All participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be a presentation lasting for approximately 20 minutes, followed by Q&A. If you have a question you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A function on the Zoom app. Please note that this session is being recorded. On behalf of Painchek today, we have the CEO and Managing Director, Philip Daffis. I'll hand over to Philip. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Matt, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for your time today. As Matt says, I'm going to focus on the December 31st, 2021 quarterly update, provide you the information that was submitted to the ASX last Friday, and really focusing on the fact that, Painchek continues with its adult app to have very positive progress in Australia, in the residential aged care market, and also now entering the home care market. Continue to expand overseas during very difficult global market conditions. But also, most importantly, due to the current situation, we see a very, very great global opportunity with our newly introduced infant app, which we believe is uniquely positioned for a new global market opportunity, which I'll be covering in this presentation. Now, for those who are new to Painchek, very quick summary. Painchek is an app. It's an app, but it's a medical device, a novel medical device. It comes in the form of an app using AI and machine learning to assess pain, and as a software as a service business model. We have two regulatory cleared products now: the adult app and the infant app. They're both clinically validated, regulatory cleared, and for use in 6 global markets with the US FDA in progress. We've got patents granted in multiple markets, and the infant app, as you will see, is designed to assess post-procedural pain for 1 month to 1 year olds, including post-vaccination pain assessments. Today, the last few years, we've focused on the adult app, and we've successfully entered the Australian domestic market with more than 1,500 aged care facilities and 120,000 plus beds under license, covering Australia, UK, Singapore, and New Zealand. In a software technology with strong gross margins, 80 to 85%, and our focus is really about improving health and workflows for our clients, their patients, and their residents. Our purpose is to give a voice to those who cannot reliably verbalize their pain. At one extreme, you've got people, the elderly living with dementia or with cognitive impairment, who've lost their ability to reliably verbalize their pain, or where their underlying pain-related behaviors are misdiagnosed, at times leading to the wrong medications, treatments, such as psychotropic drugs. So our goal is to identify pain for them and get them correctly treated. On the other extreme are infants and young children who are pre-verbal and by definition cannot verbalize their pain. And also where healthcare professionals and parents are unable to distinguish whether the child is crying due to being in pain or for any other reasons. Our goal there is to help those healthcare professionals and families. Now, these are large global markets. There's more than 50 million people living with dementia today, which is expected to triple to over 150 million by 2050, reflecting the aging population that we live with. And these people typically occupy more than 1/3 of hospital beds. So dementia is a big issue in hospitals as well. And people with dementia can triangulate between hospital beds, living at home, and being in aged care facilities. So those are 3 markets that we focus on. The infant market actually dwarfs the dementia market. There's annually more than 400 million pre-verbal children. Around 100 million or so are infants. And again, that's 1 month old to 12 months old. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to vaccinate infants who can't communicate their pain puts Painchek infants, as you'll see, in a very unique position. This is our strategy, and this is what we report on our quarterlies. We'll continue to report on through this year. On one side, the primary focus is converting those 120,000 contracted beds into a revenue which is worth more than $5.5 million. Centrally to the strategy is the infant app, which is being globalized now commercially as part of this vaccination rollout program. And the third area is extending both the adults and the infant technologies into global markets taking the learnings from Australia into those international markets and making this a truly global business. So all three areas we cover in our quarterly, and I will touch on through this report. Let's start with Hkm Australia, because that's where we focused our original part of the business. We started here because it's our domestic market. We want to prove it locally. And we know that 60% of people living in aged care live with dementia or cognitive impairments and are unable to reliably verbalise their pain. In addition, 80% of these residents suffer with chronic pain. Our footprint across Australia now is very significant. We cover more than 60% of aged care facilities. We've contracted with Painchek, and therefore becoming the established brand for pain assessment for people living in aged care. We're not just in every state or each city, we're effectively in every town where there is an aged care facility. Now, this brand awareness and the positive results of our products is driving great demand, leading to new business development opportunities locally and overseas. This is a summary of our progress to date. As you're aware, we received a government grant to accelerate the transition of Painchek into aged care, which drove exponential growth in 2021. We've got more than 1,500 aged care facilities and 120,000 beds contracted. And during the past year, even with aged care locked down and us not being able to enter any aged care facility, we're able to continue to implement, to sell and implement through our online and e-learning capabilities. This has now taken our total beds implemented, at far right-hand side here, to over 64,000 beds. And we have an aggressive implementation plan, obviously working very, very closely with aged care facilities going through a very difficult situation, but we're working with them very, very closely to actually implement the other 60,000 beds that's still outstanding during these next 6 months period. While we're doing that in Australia, we're also looking to expand further overseas. As I said before, those beds converted into full implemented paid beds would result into an ARR of over $5.5 million. And that revenue level will cover our core operating company costs, providing the basis for a significantly profitable global business. The positive market uptake we're seeing here continues to validate the business model for overseas expansion, where we're now present with 6 overseas countries and continuing to grow. Now, even though New South Wales and Victoria went into lockdowns in the past quarter, and that's where a majority of our customers are, we still managed to make significant progress in Australia. I've mentioned before, 64,000 beds implemented. During the past quarter, additional 7,500 beds were implemented and 3,500 transitioned across from the government funding to standard Painchek payment terms, which gives us now an actual ARR of $1 million as we head towards that $5.5 million number. The transition from people coming off the grants to be fully implemented and then onto Painchek paying fees will continue to be seen through this year, and you'll see the results both in our cash flow and our recognized revenue over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, we've also continued to grow in the UK. We now have over 3,500 contracted beds with 2,500 live and a very strong pipeline of new sales. We've actually entered the Welsh and Scottish markets through government funding programs. We've got pilots in place, including a 1,000-bed pilot in Wales, demonstrating confidence and credibility in Painchek. And these are large market opportunities. The UK is a 400,000-bed aged care market. In Southern Ireland, we've got partnerships now with VCare and Smart Healthcare as we enter that Irish market as well. We've also integrated with 5 CMS partners, care management system providers. These are people that provide care management systems into aged care, and they fully integrate with Painchek. And those partners of ours cover 175,000 UK beds. So good access for us to continue to grow. A quote on the right-hand side from one of our clients, from Cheryl Baird, from Orchard Care Homes. They started off with 1 home with Painchek and 50 beds. They've now extended to all of their homes and 1,200 approved beds, which are being rolled out. As you can see there in the yellow, which is really great to see, so one of the greatest achievements is a marked decrease in antipsychotic use in those living with dementia through the use of the Painchek app. So what our goal all was originally, we're seeing it not just here in Australia, we're seeing those benefits overseas. Now, we are a digital technology. Fortunately, we're a digital technology to start with. We've also transitioned our whole support, sales and implementation process digitally as well. As you can see, since June 20, when COVID hit and we moved this model, we've now trained more than 8,000 clients on this basis and more than 1,700 in the past quarter while there was a lockdown going on. So in fact, the number of people actually trained are considerably more because obviously we also have the trainer program, and so many carers in aged care train their colleagues as well. This saves time, it saves costs compared to face-to-face methods, and allows us to train any client from any location. That's going to be really critical as we go into our global business model. The other thing we do is we record every single pain assessment conducted on our portal. We're building effectively the largest pain database in the world. And as you can see, in the last quarter, we continue to grow exponentially in line with the number of beds implemented, more than 200,000 assessments in the past quarter. And as we head towards 1 million pain assessments. Now we don't just store that data, we analyze that data and provide it back to our clients for them to use as part of their accreditation and compliance needs to show that they're actually doing good pain assessments and then managing their care effectively. These are all part of the new aged care regulations. So we're a key tool, not just to assess pain, but also to meet accreditation and compliance needs. Finally, in terms of aged care, this is some of all our partners globally. In Australia, we've got 12 integration partners, 5 in the UK, 4 in New Zealand, and 1 in Canada. What that basically means is when you do a Painchek assessment and you have these care management systems or medication management systems in place, the Painchek result is stored automatically online, saving time, saving money, and making it much more convenient for the aged care facility. So I think the partnerships here reflect the value of our product and the fact that we are now recognised as a gold standard in the pain assessments. Now that's a sort of summary of the adult app. Now I want to move on to our middle pillar, which is the pillar regarding the Paycheck infant app. As I said before, it's a unique product. It's the world's first infant app. It's regulatory cleared. It's validated in the Lancet Digital Health Journal, one of the most prestigious journals in the world. And it's a significantly large market opportunity. Now our first product was with infants, and infants is 1 to 12 months old. And as you may have read in the Lancet Journal, we trained our technology assessing infants pre, during, and post vaccinations. That's how we trained our product. So it's perfectly designed to be a post-vaccination pain assessment tool. I'm going to show a video of how this works. The video is actually how the infant works. It's self-explanatory, but note it is a video within a video, so there may be a slight delay in the video itself. But I think it's really very good to show how simple the product is. I'm just going to hold it there for a second because I was going to stop it there. After we do a 3-second assessment of the infant's face, you get a result. And the result is which of the 6 facial expressions of pain the child has been exhibiting, or the infant's been exhibiting. As in this case, you can see the icons on the right indicate that brow lowering, wrinkling the nose, parting lips and closing eyes were 4 of the pain assessment modules or features that we picked up there. And that information then is stored and saved and then considered in the future against other assessments. So I'll carry on with the rest of the video. So you can see this is really sorry, I'm going to go. This is very much a very simple and very easy tool to use, both for healthcare professionals and family members, to assess pain for children post-vaccination. So this is a summary of our key sort of target markets we assessed when we started the project: post-vaccination, post-operative, and also partnerships and licensing with companies to deliver the product for those areas. I'm going to talk and focus mostly now on the left-hand side, the post-vaccination opportunity. Now, as COVID-19 vaccinations focus shift now moves to children, it will move to infants by mid-2022. It's likely the complexity and risks will increase that may impact achieving what everyone's trying to achieve, a 90% plus vaccination level. There are reasons for this. Number one, while adult parents are more open to be self-vaccinated, we all are, and I am, it is likely they'll be more hesitant with their children, especially infants under 1 year of age, because there's just no history. Australian infants have received currently 5 vaccinations in their first year of life. COVID-19 will come the 6th. Now, Australia, as an example, has a great record, 95% vaccination rates for those existing vaccines. And we assume the goal for the COVID-19 vaccination should be the same. We also know from the results already from the 5 to 12-year-olds, children going through vaccination, that pain is being cited as the major post-vaccination adverse effect. It can last for up to 5 to 7, even up to 10 days post-vaccination. So reality is, as complexity increases with infants to get the vaccination work, there's another issue to consider. And that is, unlike adults, infants cannot self-report their pain. Currently, healthcare professionals rely on parents to report on their children's pain level, which is, not great. And so far, as I said, it's likely that infants will experience higher rates of post-vaccination pain. To address that, Painchek Infant is a unique objective measure to assess that pain and fill that gap in this program. So how would it work? This is a very simple graphic of how this process could work. We all know we've gone through vaccinations recently, or many of us have. In the case of the infants, they will receive the vaccine, and of course, at the time, they'll get some acute short-lived pain. What we see happening is that before the child and the family leave the immuniser's office or the vaccination centre, Painchek can be used to assess the pain of that child prior to discharge from the clinic. At the same time, the parent can be educated on signs and symptoms of post-immunisation pain and how to use Painchek Infant at home. As you could see before, it's very simple, 3-second video assessments. This allows the parents to continue to assess pain at home on an ongoing basis for those next 5 to 10 days at least. It's simple, it's cost effective, it actively supports monitoring the vaccinations. It generates real-time medication data for government bodies and agencies such as AUSVAC Safety, and potentially reduces the need for doctor's office visits and post-vaccinations. Take into account that it's likely going to be a 3 or 4 dose vaccination for infants over a year period, making this even more important. So our strategy going forwards is relatively simple. We want to work with healthcare professionals, that's GPs, vaccine centres and pharmacists, provide them with Painchek to do the baseline monitoring. And then also want to work directly with family members and through obviously the healthcare professionals to provide them with the access to Painchek for post-vaccination monitoring at home, and obviously feedback to government bodies and related. So again, being a digital technology, we can do that really quite simply. This is, oh, sorry, just jumped. This, in terms of strategy, well, this is the sort of the markets where we have regulatory clearance right now. It's around covers 10 million infants, and where we see this program starting. And we do know that the US is likely to go first, Europe second by March or April this year, and Australia by about June or so. So we've got the product perfectly timed and aligned to make that work. How are we going forwards? We're liaising with governments and infant vaccine rollout programs. We're building relationships with partnerships who can partner with us to supply the product, the technology in an integrated manner. And obviously we're working to extend the use of our app, currently up to 1 year of age, to up to 2 years of age in the very near future. So it has a broader accessibility. Finally, we really do want to make this available for both the healthcare professional and the consumer. That's really part of our strategy. So I'm going to hold it there on the infant app, but that's, to me, that's a really, really exciting opportunity for this year. Before I finish up, another very important announcement last month, which links back to this somehow, is the relationship we've built now with MPS and Sigma Healthcare. In collaboration with them, there is now a medication management system which is being supplied into home care and also into directly to consumers through pharmacy partnerships. We've completed our first home care reseller agreements, and we've integrated with MPS, as we said. This is the world's first end-to-end medication management solution with integrated pain management for home carers, both through the home care package route and also direct to consumers. And as I said before, I do believe this model can be leveraged internationally and could also move into the infant sector as a totally integrated pain assessment and pain management collaboration. So really exciting opportunity there. So finalised up, this is the 3 pillars of our strategy I've talked through. We're doing well on the left-hand side, implementing those beds and transitioning to full ARR. We've got a great opportunity in the centre with our new infant app on a global basis with post-vaccination. And we're extending obviously into home care and hospitals with agreements such as Ramsay Hospital. The Nelson disability trial is complete, and we're finalising commercial agreements there. And I am personally in the process of moving across to Europe for 2 or 3 months to actually work with our partners overseas and collaborators overseas to expand that business. We submitted in December our FDA submission for the adults, our FDA supplement, and we're expecting feedback this quarter from them as well. So all 3 pillars are moving well. Our team's very stable. We've got a great mix of commercial, scientific, and operations in our team, and obviously overseas as well. Our board is been with us for 4 or 5 years, and has a mix of the venture capital, business, and technology sides. Finally, in terms of financial information, we have a market cap around close to 60 million. We do have about more than 3/4 of operating cash left in the bank, and we have no debt, and we have a very good loyal shareholder base. And I will hold it there and hand back to Matt.
Thank you, Philip, for that. We'll now move on to the Q&A session. The questions are based on those sent through via email and using the Q&A function within Zoom. So if anybody listening or viewing today does have a question that you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in and submit on your screen on the Zoom app. The first question that we've had come through, Philip, is what are the learnings over the last couple of years when it comes to COVID that the company has been able to take away and use going forward?
Well, one of the key learnings, obviously, is that being digital technology is critical. I think, be it aged care or be it a hospital or anywhere that's dealing with people for healthcare, if you've got a digital technology, that's going to be absolutely critical because that will make life a lot easier. Even FDA now are looking at letting digital technologies in faster into the US market. But the other thing I just would point out is that we've all learned as home carers of ourselves or home consumers of healthcare technologies, how to test ourselves, how to use RATs, how to use, what is sensitivity and specificity, how to assess ourselves using technology in the home. And that's again where Painchek comes in really well. We're a technology that's digital, but also something that can be used at the point of care. So those to me are really big shifts in the market, and we are right aligned with it. And maybe I'll finish off by saying that also that vaccinations, as we've been talking about, will be here for many years. So therefore, having better tools to assess adverse effects, including pain, for both adults and for children in the healthcare professional's office, plus in the home, is going to be critical, and we're very, very well positioned to supply on those.
Great, thank you, Philip. The next question is, what's the general feedback been around the infants product thus far from external parties to Painchek?
Yeah, well, we've actually had good conversations in the post-surgical area. Obviously, it's an infant product, so there have been a lot of infants presenting actually to hospitals the last 12 months because of the caution of parents taking their children to hospital. So that's been one of the sort of the difficulties. But we've identified a number of post-surgical applications which we're ready to go with. But the reality is we've really tried to focus now on the vaccination area, and we've had very good conversations with companies, the pharmaceutical industry, diagnostic industries, who all concur. And we've spoken. We have very good relations with the Department of Health here and overseas, who all basically concur that there is a gap and a need, and therefore what we're looking to do is actually work with these partners to build our technology into that area. So post-vaccination infants for us is a very big focus, and we're uniquely positioned to deliver on it. And there's nowhere else in the world that no other product in the world that can do what we do right now.
Thanks, Philip. And on a related note, how quickly do you think you can push the infants rollout if there's interest to pair this with COVID vaccinations?
Rapidly. The product's done. We're going to build more educational tools into it, especially for parents at home, where basically there's a sort of a very simple education module when you go into it first to sort of show that you've understood, how to do pain assessments. But we've got a lot of those online anyway, but we look to build it into the app as well. And also, again, with the healthcare professionals, provide them with the materials, the training materials, to actually provide that for the home carers, the parents, to continue to do the assessments at home. So we've mapped out all the needs. And we've even looked into the US, how to provide that in the US with all the labeling they require in terms of their clinical decision support process. We've got an understanding of that, and we haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but we're looking to. And therefore, we should be, we are, the key thing, we've got the product. It's really the educational support material around it that needs to be developed, and that's something we've got a good handle on.
Great, thank you. A question that's come through is, how long is the Wales pilot planned to run for? If successful, what are you expecting the next steps and timing to look like?
That's a great question. I didn't go into that in enough detail. Both the Welsh and the Scottish pilots, the Scottish pilot is quite a small one. The Welsh pilot's about 1,000 beds for about 3 to 6 months. But the goals of those are that if it goes well, the pilots, they're looking at a national application. Now, Scotland and Wales combined are around 60,000 beds of the UK's 400,000 beds, with England being around 330,000, 340,000. So these are it's really good because again, like Australia, we work with the government. They saw the need. The same thing's happening for us in Scotland and Wales, because again, there's a need. They want to do the pilots to validate how it's going to work. Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish Minister, has already given iPads out to all aged care facilities, which means that there's one barrier gone, because the UK was so technology behind. It was one of our barriers. Now every aged care facility in Scotland's got an iPad, and that means we get those pilots working well. There's limited barriers to entry, and as you've seen, we've got the CMS partners in the UK. All the big ones have all signed up with us to be integrated. So we can see a rapid movement in the UK and obviously Scotland and Wales.
Great. Just to cover off another question that's come through, does Painchek offer any guidance in terms of future revenue growth?
We don't actually. We don't, because being such a young company, it's hard to know. But we don't. But we do. What we have said here is that we do have signed beds for 120,000 plus beds. That equates to, when fully rolled out and transitioned across, and these are actually contracted clients. This is not theory. When contracted across, that will equate to $5.5 million. And that 5.5, we're a small company, that $500 million covers our core costs, which goes to show how scalable this business is. It's an amazingly scalable business. We have, very, very little costs of goods. We're fully digital, and we do our training and service digitally. And we could literally run our whole business from Australia if we could get people working 24 hours a day. So that's the only thing we really talk about, is what's the value of our contracted clients and what that equates to when we move it all onto full paid licensing. And I would add, the thing is, what I would value is that if you've got a product that actually is being used clinically, which ours is, close to 1 million applications, and people are buying it, that's the basis of a business. It's not about signing up lots of distributors and hopefully they buy something. It's about establishing it, building the model, and then, as we're doing it, taking it directly overseas and working with partners in those markets. I've been doing this with Cochlear and Roche and Pfizer for 30 years. I know how we do this globally, and this is the right model. And we've made the right progress in a very small period of time, 5 years. It's a very short period of time. And those last 2 years have been a pandemic that's really impacted aged care. So, one venture capitalist said to me, Philip, I think what you've done at Painchek is miraculous. Most small companies have done next to nothing the last 2 years, startups, because they didn't have the traction, and then they just pulled back. We actually kept moving, we kept implementing, we kept proceeding, which goes to show you the value of the product, and also the great team we have. We have a very good team that knows how to commercialize and how to implement and manage the business.
Thanks, Philip. And another question, what opportunities is the company looking at to more quickly grow the uptake overseas?
Well, yeah, most things, those 3 pillars that I covered, the adult app into our main European markets. That's the reason why I'm going over to Europe in a couple of weeks' time for about 2 to 3 month periods. We've got opportunities in mainland Europe. We've got obviously Canada, which we want to revisit now that's cleared up. And we are looking for a faster entry into the US market with our infant app. It isn't there yet, but we're looking for that. So it's really about market expansion of our core technology, but also, as we said, we've got a nice partnership with MPS and Sigma Healthcare that could really rapidly push us into home care in Australia. And that integrated model of medication management to assess pain and to deliver the therapeutics combined, as we call the integrated disease management delivery, is something that we can pick up and take into overseas markets. I mean, one of our partners in the UK we're talking to is Boots. They're a massive pharmacy group, and they're very interested in working with us. And these are all the models that we want to try to work on with partners, but while still controlling our business on a local basis.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, if there's any final questions, there's just one in the queue at the moment. Please send one through. Philip, the next one is, how many beds do you forecast will stay on as fully licensed clients after the trial in percentage terms, if you've got a forecast on that at all?
Well, our strategy is to maintain that number. So we know we have lost some small ones, but we've also gained new ones. If you look at our ARR has actually increased, even though we've lost a few beds overall. So our goal is to balance it out. We know we'll lose some, but we know we'll gain more. We've been doing that. And so therefore the goal is this year to keep that 120,000 core number and try to have that all on full paying. And if we do that, then we've ticked a marvelous goal. We're already on that way. We've already hit $1 million ARR. We've already got 25,000 of those beds switched from government fee to paying. So it shows you it's happening, and most of those are the larger, I say the larger groups that actually, can handle that for technology. The ones who've been losing were very small, and they've said to us, can you come back later? Because with COVID and the breakouts, we just can't deal with new tech right now. Please come back to us some other time. We'll get them back at some stage, because remember, for compliance and regulatory reasons, you need good pain management and you need to document it. That's what we do superbly well in aged care. So if somebody stops for a while, that's fine, but I'm sure we'll be coming back to them in the very near future.
Thank you. And one more question that's come through regarding the infant tool and direct-to-consumer. Can you please clarify if there are any further regulatory approvals required to allow parents to use the tool at home as opposed to healthcare professionals in the clinic?
Now, our regulatory clearance allows us to provide this directly to the consumer. That's part of our regulatory in Australia and overseas markets. Right now, so that the real barrier for us is not the ability to supply it. The barrier for us is a self-inflicted barrier, saying we must make sure that healthcare professionals are comfortable with this. We've worked with them so they understand that that's part of the process. A bit like rapid assay testing. Look, I work for Roche, who provides PCR and rapid assay testing. They're the world leads in both. I worked for them for 8 years in their headquarters in Germany, UK, and Australia. This is the right way to do it. Get the healthcare professionals on board and then show you've got a technology that can be used in the home, show you've got the education materials and the training materials, and then you'll get the tick from the healthcare professional. And what's happened with rapid assay testing, or RATs as we call them here, is that the healthcare professionals in the past used to block these things, have said, it's too late, the world's changed, we've got to give people access to these technologies, because you know what? We need people to take responsibility for their health as well. So it's a sea change that's happened, and we are rolling the wave in the back of that sea change. And I would always make sure that we do it in the most appropriate and right way forwards.
Great. Thanks for that, Philip, and thanks everyone for those questions that came through. If anyone has anything further in the way of questions, please feel free to email. The contact details are on each of the announcements, and the team will come back to you that way. But Philip, I'll hand it back to you to just provide a closing comment.
Yeah, look, I'd just like to say certainly thank you to everyone for being here today. Thank you for the support for our shareholders. It has been a traumatic 2 years for the world, and but we've managed to get through it really well, I believe, really well. And I would say there's 3 key points that earlier. First thing is the world's gone digital, and we're a digital tech. The world's moved to home-based testing through rapid assay testing and all those technologies, and that's what we've got. So therefore, the world's accepting it and understanding the strength of it, the weaknesses, and how to manage it. And finally, let's face it, vaccinations will be here for a long while, and the most vulnerable of those are going to be infants, and we will do everything we can to provide the best pain assessment tool to manage adverse effects such as pain post-vaccination for infants and children, and of course for adults, but infants and children are the most vulnerable ones in this area, and that's our focus, and that's what we believe we can supply. So thank you again for your support, and look forward to a great 2022.
Thanks, Philip, and thanks again, everyone, for joining. That concludes today's presentation. You can now disconnect.